life is to be lived. And this is where my living list obviously came in.
Yeah,
life,
I'd like to talk about that.
There's a lot of people, and I had this conversation with a friend the other day, that you're always brought up, especially at school or by your parents, to get a good job, earn lots of money, buy the biggest house you can afford, almost get into debt because you need to have a certain sort of quality of life. No one says buy the small house, put some in savings, but don't save that for your future. Save that for next year and do something with it.
Yeah.
If you've got 10 grand, use half of that and actually enjoy, because you never know. You may never get to that retirement age, and you may never get that chance to travel when you're older.
Hi everybody, and welcome to FEBE Founder Stories. I have my lovely friend Jules with me. Jules, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, John.
You look wonderful.
Oh, shit.
I cannot ever compliment you. Anyway, now we have someone absolutely wonderful. It is an absolute honour to have you here today, Laura Middleton-Hughes. Now, Laura, I'm going to have to get straight to the context here. In terms of, we meet entrepreneurs and everybody has... Everyone has a very inspirational story. Everyone is very, very driven, very focused. They have to go through, the good times, the bad times. Meeting you changed my life, if I'm honest with you, because your outlook on life is just incredible. You are positive, you're awesome, but you're having to deal with something that sadly affects many, many, many of us, and will affect potentially many of us in life, cancer. So just tell us your story in terms of, what it's been like to have to, because you were an entrepreneur yourself, you were running your own business, and then one day you got that, that really, really difficult piece of news. Because I want to share it, because as I said, the way you talk about it, the things you've taught me in terms of just how you have to have such a great outlook on life, we have to celebrate you because you're awesome. So over to you. So can you give us fill in the kind of the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So roll back right to 2013, I was a self-employed hairdresser. I got my own business, was doing a lot of wedding hair, absolutely loved it. That was what I trained to do from 17. And it was, just the way I saw my future going, building up the business. And me and my now husband, we actually went on a 5-week trip around Australia, just because we wanted to do something before we maybe settled down and had a family and all the other things.
And the dog.
And the dog, obviously.
What dog?
I've got two Cocker Spaniels now, which are lovely. But
Have you got a Cocker Spaniel?
No, I've got a cockapoo.
Cockapoo. I've got a mongrel. Okay.
Laura's got proper dogs.
Oh, Spaniels are just the best, honestly. So we were just living life, enjoying life, having this wonderful trip in Australia. And about 3 weeks in, I remember being in the shower one morning, and I wasn't using a shower scrub, which I'd normally use back at home, because I didn't want to keep getting it wet, so I was using my hands. And I came across a very small lump in my left breast. Probably felt like a pea, wasn't much bigger. And I sort of asked Brad, I was like, am I feeling something that's, is it me, or is there actually something there?
What did he say?
Well, he said he could feel something, but again, I was 25. We just assumed it must be hormonal, didn't really worry about it, spent the rest of the time on the holiday enjoying life, but it still hadn't gone away by the time we came home. So he persuaded me to go to the doctors, and luckily my GP actually took me seriously, although she did say, I don't think it's anything. You're very young, it moves.
And you felt perfectly well.
I felt very well. I was probably at my fittest I've ever been.
Really?
Yeah, and but she just said, I want to refer you on just for a second opinion because I'm not an expert. Now, I know since, because she told me they have a big meeting with all the doctors in the surgery every week just to kind of go through things, and out of all of them, I think there's probably about 15 GPs in my surgery, only 2 others would have referred me. Everyone else, everyone else, because of my age, wouldn't have done. But got to the hospital, and again, my consultant sort of looked at me, had a feel, said, I don't think it's anything, but we're going to do an ultrasound and a biopsy. And so they did that. They also did a mammogram, which they told me I wouldn't have one because I was too young. So I was a bit like, oh, maybe they've found something. And actually the biopsies are not the nicest thing. I didn't have any idea what I was prepared for. It's like a staple or a hole punch going into your breast. So that is, it was a horrific time. And I just thought, well, they've obviously seen something and had to do that long wait. You have a couple of weeks wait. And it came back that I had stage 3, grade 3 breast cancer. So at 25, I had
Stage 3, grade 3, is that the same thing?
So so there's different stages of cancer. Stage 3 is quite aggressive because it generally means the sort of size of the tumour, or if it's spread or anything like that. But then stage 4 means that it's incurable because it's gone beyond the breast. But grades are dependent on, as I say, the size and the just other factors. But it just means it was quite an aggressive breast cancer that I had. So then I had to endure a lot of treatment, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, had surgery. I'd never had an operation before. And obviously all this time I was trying to keep my business going because first of all, I loved it and I didn't want to stop. And second of all, I couldn't afford to.
No.
I couldn't afford, there was no help financially. So I couldn't afford to stop. So I was sadly putting myself in hospital a lot with infections because you're working with the public. And although my doctor said, don't do it, I had to. But that kept me going. I didn't really have a choice, no, but it kept me going. And my clients were really good because I think because I had a really amazing clientele that I'd had for years and built up, and they knew me, they knew, they were behind me all the way. So they didn't mind if I needed to cancel or change their appointments. And then after treatment, so after about a year I finished and, my hair started growing back because I'd lost that. Obviously as a hairdresser, that's really hard. And
you're just about to move on from that.
Yeah.
That would have been really hard.
It was very challenging, but because I was one of these people that I knew it was going to fall out and I wanted to take that control before it did. Yeah. So then I had a bit of a party to shave it off. So I remember the first day I sort of went and felt my hair and I remember pulling out a clump and I was like, right, this is time. I think it was about 2 weeks after I'd started chemo.
Yeah.
And so I said to my colleague in the salon, I was like, right, I'm going to bring some people in. Can you shave my hair off for me? Which I think as a hairdresser, it is a really, really hard thing because your hair is your identity and it's what you love. So losing that was really difficult. Yeah. But I did it. I did it in a way that meant I had the control.
Yeah. And that was really important to you.
Really important because you lose all control. You lose absolutely all control. Your whole life is sort of now revolving around someone else. Someone's treating you, someone's keeping you here.
Yeah. You sort of not brushed over, but you went through that first year really quickly.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment at the beginning where, because you either sink or swim, I assume, in that situation, and you've obviously swam and are continuing to swim and your hair looks amazing. But, was there any moment at the beginning there where you just thought, you know what, fuck this, I'm done?
There was a lot of why me's, definitely, a lot of why me's. But I had that attitude of, I can sit in a corner and cry, but that's not going to help. So I just ploughed on, got all my friends involved, did lots of nice things. There was many days I was sat on the sofa so ill, and this is when I kind of look back actually and I think how bad I was at chemo, because I'm not someone to sit still. I'm not someone to sit on the sofa all day or not get out of my PJs. So that was, I look back and I think I was really poorly at that point. There was days where I didn't even move, and chemotherapy affects people in different ways. But I just remember. You have those days, and I think I'm talking very positively because I'm kind of a bit further along, but you can have those days. A lot of people do, and I did. And it wasn't all roses and fairies. It was actually very dark in certain times. But I always had an end goal. I always had, right, I need to just get through treatment, and then I need to get back to me. I need to then try and find, and this is the other thing, you lose your identity a little bit. You become Laura with cancer. And so you then need to sort of find a new normal.
So your reason was you?
Absolutely.
Because people always say, don't they, the reason was my kids or whatever else, but your reason was you and you love life and
definitely.
You were so young and you wanted to live that.
Definitely.
Life.
And I think, even just having, the hairdressing part of it, it meant so much because every time I could go back in, it gave me that chance to be me. So then I got, after treatment, I really threw myself back into work. And as I say, trying to find myself, but work was a saviour for me, absolutely. It just gave me everything. But then, so fast forward another year, so this is beginning of 2016, I started actually training to go on a trek for a charity. So I'd gone to a gym. The gym had actually given me a free membership because they heard my story. So I'd got a personal trainer and I started going to the gym. And one of my sessions, I just remember going, oh God, I think I've pulled something in my shoulder. And I thought I tweaked like a muscle. And as you do, you know, these things. So I was like, oh, I'll just rest it for a few weeks and it'll be fine. So I did. Pain kept on going. I then spoke to my GP and said, like, I've injured myself at the gym. I might need some physio. So they organised me to get some physio. And the pain was just getting worse and worse and worse and wasn't actually getting helped by anything. And it wasn't until my physio said to me, like, I think you should go and get, it might be like a rotary cuff tear or something that needed an operation. So he sent me to go back to the GP to organise a referral to get a scan on my shoulder. Had an ultrasound, muscles and ligaments were all fine. So then I got sent for a CT scan. And within 2 hours of having my CT scan, I had a phone call off my GP saying, I'm going to prescribe you some morphine, firstly. And also, I think we need to organise an emergency appointment with your oncologist. And I was like, right, what is this? So I then it was about 3 or 4 days later, I got an appointment with my oncologist. And the whole of my humerus head in my shoulder was tumour. There was no bone left, which is why my arm, I got to a point I couldn't even move it. They did a full scan and they also found it in my spine and my pelvis. And so at this point, it was the breast cancer that had spread to other parts of my body. And so I was told I was now stage 4, which is incurable. Which at the time, I won't lie, my whole world caved in on me. I did not know where to turn. I thought I've left this it was about 6 months from the pain starting to when I got this diagnosis. I was shocked it wasn't everywhere, to be honest, but I knew nothing really of stage 4. I didn't know what that meant for me, my future. You know, you look at statistics and they're really scary. They sort of, 2 to 5 years on certain drugs. And I was told the type that I have, the certain drug that I had to go on, could or may only work for 18 months. I had to have a major operation to my right shoulder, which then completely impacted what I could then do hairdressing. So my business was literally, I remember getting that diagnosis and I'm ringing up my clients the next day being like, I'm not coming back to work
So that's
ever.
a hard stop.
That was the hard stop. In a way, it's a good thing because it kind of forced me to slow down because otherwise I would have probably tried to carry on. But that was devastating. Obviously, losing that, I was told I would no longer be able to have a family. I was told that, as I say, my future was now limited and short, and we just didn't know where to turn. And this was when I was 28. And 3 months before that, I'd just lost my mum as well because she had a neurological illness. So 2016, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but it was absolutely shite. It's horrible, really horrible. And it was obviously for my family as well. My sisters had just lost their mum and now their sister had a stage 4 diagnosis. And I remember just going into this little hole of like, I don't know who I am. I now haven't got my career. I now haven't got the ability to, I always wanted children. That was my sort of goal. I now had, a limited life. And I remember sitting in hospital while I had about 8 days in Birmingham for my shoulder operation. And I remember sitting in hospital and I was like, right, if I've only got a year to live, what do I want to do in my year? Where do I want to go? What do I want to see? Who do I want to be with? And I wrote a list and I called it my living list because I did not want a bucket list. And
because of that, I refuse to ever use the word bucket.
I hate the word bucket list. I hate it because it just makes me feel like
a living list, you call it.
Precisely.
Sorry, Laura, was that year something that you had in your head, or was that something that people had told you? Because
I think I just couldn't look beyond a year. I think even now, I mean, I'm 6.5 years on, still on the same treatment line, which they told me might only work for 18 months. Yeah. Stable scan, I had one the other day, thankfully. So it's still in my spine.
When was the scan?
I had the results 2 days ago.
And it was
stable. So
I've got
it.
You're not stalking Laura on Instagram, John.
I'm not on, what's this called? Instagram? I'm not on Instagram.
So I've got it in the spine. I've got it in my pelvis. It's still there. And I say to people, it is currently sleeping. It's having a sleepover. It's not having a house party yet. When it has a house party, it can go away. But no, while it's sleeping, I'm happy it's staying there for the minute. It obviously impacts my everyday. my whole life at that point got changed. I was no longer Laura the hairdresser. I was now Laura, the girl with incurable cancer. And I had to really, really fight to find some form of identity and some form of new way of living. Because, even for my husband, we weren't married at the time, but I think there was many times I told him to go because I was like, I've got no future for you. I can't give you a family. I can't give you a security of anything. I'm, might only have a year or two. So he was amazing. He stuck literally by my side the whole time. And the fact that he'd gone through the whole journey from primary to secondary with me meant that he knew...
And his name is?
Brad.
Let's pick up Brad.
Brad, awesome. Yeah. Oh, he's amazing. He is. And he's just... So this is obviously jumping around a little bit, but we weren't married. And it was something I did want, but I sort of, at that point, I was very much on the sideline of, he's there. And I can't ask for any more than that. He's there. And I remember in 2018, we'd gone on holiday. On the last day of holiday, we were just so we're having a little swim, and we got to some shallow water, and he just suddenly started sort of saying, "Oh, we've had a really nice holiday," and then got down on one knee in the water and pulled out a ring off his back pocket and proposed, and it was just adorable.
Wow.
But I also, for me, it meant a huge amount because it was like, that was the commitment. He wanted to be here. He knew that he knew what the future held. He knows what's going on, but he still wanted that, and that was like, for me. That
I
was
love Brad. I really love Brad. He's amazing.
He is lovely. He does my head in most of the time, but got to be real here. But super.
I think Brad's got a good one with Laura, though. To be honest,
of course.
I think it's a pretty fair one there.
I think he just sounds like your relationship
and for him
is just beautiful.
Well, him as well. Like the whole thing really impacted his work, and his, he had issues with his employment that he was in before my diagnosis, and so he's then changed jobs, and he's now a taxi driver currently because it's just easy. It works around us. It means he can take time off when we want to go away, when we want to do something. And my list, my living list has kept us going, because every time I feel a bit down, I'm like, right, what's on my list? Where can I go? What can I see? And they're not all extravagant. I have been to the Maldives, and I did go to some really lovely places, but some of them are just going afternoon tea somewhere, or I don't know, reading a certain book, or walking alpacas. Someone suggested that. And I read the weather forecast for a local TV station.
Amazing.
That was on there. So it's just a list of all sorts, and it's, I'd say that's really given me hope and something to kind of just focus on, because you lose that purpose. And I still struggle with the whole, as you said earlier, about like looking beyond a year. I really struggle even now looking beyond the year. Because I get scanned every 3 months, and at any point that can change. And I've lost friends really quickly, especially recently. I lost one friend really quickly who was doing well, and then 6 months later she's not here. So you just don't know. But while I'm here, I do a lot of charity work. I do a lot of work in the secondary community. And even though it's not the path I thought I would take or ever wanted to take, it's not all bad. It has given me opportunities. I've walked catwalks. I have done magazine shoots. I have done things like this.
With John.
Podcast with John.
Let me just get to that. That is why you're here, because I was at Fairfax and FEBE here in the Growth 100. Yep. You have been one of their models, was it last year?
So it was for their breast cancer campaign in October. Yeah. I was the model that did all the, they bring out every year a limited edition items for breast cancer, and they raise, I can't remember the figure now, but it was in the sort of 80,000s, I think. So it's a lot of money they raise for breast cancer. Yeah,
and that is I pinpoint that lunch that we had when I was hearing your story, which was not just like, for me, that was a life changer. To hear what your story, what you've gone through, but most importantly for me, how you're dealing with it. I can't get my head around how amazing. Where does that strength come from? Is it always been in you? Is it something that is quite common with people when they get this? Where does it come from?
Honestly, I have no idea. I've always been a busy person, someone that I'm a driven person. I like to do things. I've never been one to just sit around and, wish away time. So I think, I don't know. I just think when you're in a position where at any point your life could be cut short, and I know, like, obviously we all are going to die, right? But you kind of don't expect it before, I'd say even like, let's say 70. I've got two grannies who are 93 years old. So at 28 to suddenly be told you've got a disease that, at the time I didn't think I'd hit 30. I'm turning 35 this year. So, that is my goal, 35. And
go for
who
35.
knows? Go for 35. But then,
No, so you look great for 35.
Oh, look great. Oh, thank you.
But 35 is old.
Smooth, John.
Well, 35 is old. I'm just saying.
35. I guess you can look, everyone can look very different, can't you? You can, 35, some people can look older.
Anyway, we digress.
But, if I can hit 40, that would be incredible. But I can't, at the minute, I can't see it. I just think it's celebrating. It gives you, it gives you this kind of sense of like life is to be lived. And this is where my living list obviously came in.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that.
There's a lot of people, and I had this conversation with a friend the other day, that you're always brought up, especially at school or, by your parents, to get a good job, earn lots of money, buy the biggest house you can afford, almost get into debt because you need to have a certain sort of quality of life. No one says, buy the small house, put some in savings, but don't save that for your future. Save that for next year and do something with it. Yeah. If you've got 10 grand, use half of that and actually enjoy, because you never know. You may never get to that retirement age, and you may never get that chance to travel when you're older.
And I hope this doesn't sound insensitive, but if this hadn't have happened, do you think you would have followed down that route that you've just talked about, like putting money away and like worrying about like sort of getting to pensionable age and not? Do you think you've always had that?
So we've never been. I'd say I've never been someone to kind of really think about the future that much in terms of like long term, and I've always been someone that has enjoyed. But I was always careful with money. Being a hairdresser is not the massively well-paid career anyway. But I also was one of these people that, every year I would go on holiday. I would do something, because I don't see the point of just sitting and putting it in a pot. I hadn't got to the point where I'd bought a house or anything, but I think had I not got cancer, we probably would have worked for another year. I would have bought a house, maybe one with a big enough garden that I could have put a little salon in the garden.
Yeah.
I would have then maybe had children, worked from home a bit if I could, worked around being a mother. And that's the other thing. My career was very easy to be able to have done that. I could have done weekends. I could have, done evenings hairdressing, and then we could have worked out childcare that way. So I would have definitely probably gone down that, I suppose, more traditional route. But now I really see that, a lot of my friends that have the bigger house, but they're struggling with money, they're not going anywhere. Yeah. They're not able to maybe afford to go on holiday with their children, but actually their children are not going to care that their bedroom's been repainted or their, kitchen's been extended. Those children are going to care about the time they spend with the parents, the memories that they make, the photographs they look back on. And I think that's also why, I know I'm not going to be here. So everything I'm doing, all my living list stuff, is generally with friends or family that I really want to make those memories with, because I know when I'm not here, they're going to be looking back on something. And that's something I hope is a happy memory, is fun, is knowing that, I want to have my funeral and people are going, do you know what, Laura lived. She didn't just sit there and exist. Yeah, she lived, and she had a fun life along the way. And as much as my life's going to be short, I want to pack it.
Does it frustrate you when you see people that are like moaning about the small stuff? I don't know whether you
I've
go
got
to
a lot less patience now.
And you see
absolutely.
people in the supermarket having a row over like what flavour of something they're going to buy, and don't you just want to grab people and shake them and just go, just stop,
Life's so much
moaning, just
parking.
enjoy, or just small stuff that people just get so wound up about. And
absolutely, but then I'm also, I still am very empathetic towards other people. And I know, like, my problem
that really
is...
came across when I was chatting with you.
My problems are big, but just because, my friend isn't sleeping because her baby's keeping her awake, or, I don't know, my sister's having an issue with something, it doesn't mean that that's any less important, because for them it is. It's a big thing. And I think while I'm stable and I look well, it's very actually hard for people to kind of almost think that I have this illness, that I may not be here in a few months' time. And that's obviously the hardest part, I think, because when you look ill, everyone kind of wants to be there and help you. When you look well, people kind of just assume you're just going to be here forever. So, but it's me making sure that that isn't how my sort of friends and family see it.
I'm sorry. I could just have a one-to-one with Laura with so many questions.
I want to hear about the living list.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget that, because I remember at lunch you were telling me about the stuff that you've done.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. I can't believe you did that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Just before we go to just tell what are the five, three, whatever. What are some of the best things you've done? From the experiences.
So the first one that went on my list, and this is the minute I got told I would no longer be able to have children because of the medication I had to be put on. I didn't ask. I just told Brad we're getting a dog. So my first one, getting a puppy, and so we actually welcomed Tilly into our lives in early 2017. We were in a flat that actually didn't allow pets, but we went to our landlord and told them the situation. And he agreed, so, which was lovely. Yeah. And so we picked up this little tiny ruby-coloured Cocker Spaniel. And do you know what? It was, again, one of the best things I did, because everyone was like, you're going through chemo, Laura. Like, you've just had a shoulder operation. Yeah. How are you going to cope with a puppy? Yeah. But actually, she got me out of bed in the mornings. Yeah. If I felt poorly, I still had to take her out. I still had to give her, food. I still had to take her for a wee. She was my priority. And so actually that was one thing that helped me. And also my energy levels were rock bottom. Like, I couldn't walk 5 minutes, so it was really lovely because actually she couldn't walk long either because she's a puppy. So we kind of built up our walks together, and it gave me, she could only go around the block, so I'd go around the block with her, and then we'd go to the park and do the park, or and after 6 months we were going out on nice little strolls because she kind of helped me. It encouraged me to do that. It encouraged me to get out. So yeah, that was one of the best things, definitely. And now we do have a second. We got a second a couple of years ago. So all my friends are having second babies. So I was like,
just get
dogs. I want a puppy.
Dogs, yeah.
What else? So Maldives definitely was a massive highlight. Yeah. That was a beautiful.
When was that?
We actually, luckily, I've been twice. So when my mum died, and then I got my diagnosis and I started my list, I was left a little bit of inheritance. So it was one of my fuck it moments of going, we're going to just spend whatever it costs to go to the Maldives. So we did it like quite lavishly, and it was beautiful. We had a water villa for a couple of nights, but the rest was on a beach, but it was still just really beautiful. And then I came across this deal a couple of years later. We were looking to go, I think, to the Caribbean. I came across this deal which we literally were like, that's not right. I think it was like £1,500 each for 10 days, all inclusive in the Maldives. And I phoned Brad up.
Did you have to walk there?
Yeah. So I phoned Brad up, and he's like, what's the catch? I was like, I don't know. I was like, should we just book it? It was like a year in advance. So we did. Then we got engaged in the August, but we'd booked the holiday for the following April. So I was like, well, we now need to May. That was it, May 2019. So I was like, we now have to get married in April to be able to go on this holiday. Because I can't go to Maldives, come back, get married, and then go over to Paris or something for a few days. It's not quite right. I need my honeymoon needs to be the Maldives. So honestly, absolutely stunning place. What else? Definitely, there's loads on there. Going to the Grand Prix.
Where was that?
Monaco.
You went to Monaco.
Which was incredible.
It's a bit expensive, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but I've got luckily family that's got an office over there, so I was like, they kindly took me.
Because that is the thing. That is the thing amazing about Monaco. There is nothing cheap, is there?
No. Well, I used to work on super yachts, and we were based in Monaco for about 4 months. And you do find the cheap places. There are places you can get a glass of wine and a pizza for €15. It's fine. And there's always the supermarket. They sell cheap wine. Oh God, you put me on the spot. Going to like Chelsea Flower Show, things like that I hadn't done. Seeing certain shows. Gosh, I went to see Hamilton recently. Oh, incredible show. But things like that, like, it just makes me go, well, just put stuff on. There's things that are quite adventurous, like flying in a private jet. We talked about that earlier. Or going on the Orient Express. I mean, that is definitely one I probably won't do, but it's, might as well put it on there. I've been to Chewton Glen Spa, like different spa days. Gosh, you put me on the spot now. I need to sort of go back through.
You said there were smaller ones like walking alpacas and stuff like that.
Yeah, going for like nice afternoon tea at the Claridge's and the Ritz. They were beautiful. Like Claridge's is great for their afternoon tea.
It sounds like it's just
like I've got one on there. I haven't done it yet, but going and doing like a cake making course or like a workshop.
Yeah. Getting a third dog. Is that on there?
I don't think we'll be getting a third one. However, we might breed Luna. We're still not sure, but we won't keep another one. We'll have to sort of palm them off to friends and family.
Of your experiences, was lounge underwear modelling or something?
Yeah. So
how was that? I mean, Takes confidence to do that.
So I've actually done a few different things like that. So yeah, Lounge was incredible. There was quite a lot of women. We did it. That was again a breast cancer campaign. All different. You know, some had mastectomies. Some were flat. Some, you know, I had reconstruction. So it's all different types. And it's just amazing that big companies are actually helping to get the word out. But I've also done it I do a lot of work with a charity called Little Lifts, who...
Who's that, sorry?
Little Lifts.
Yeah.
They're a local charity to me, but they do sort of amazing gift boxes for people going through breast cancer for chemo and radiotherapy in their 9 hospital partnerships and then around the UK. But they also get me doing all sorts. So I was standing on a rugby pitch field, topless, holding my hands like this with a bra sort of up here and men around me with bras on. I get involved in all sorts.
Sounds very, very, very wonderful.
I'm one of these people that if I get asked to do something, I generally say yes. Jumping out of a plane, no. I will not do that. That is not on my list.
That's not going to happen, is it?
No, I'm not doing that one.
Fear of heights?
No, fear of jumping. I could walk on a really high bridge somewhere, but if you ask me to step off that table, no. I wouldn't even jump off that table. I don't do jumping. No, honestly, I don't do jumping. I can jump on the spot. But yeah, so, you know, this is what I'm saying about, like, my life is very different.
Yeah.
My life isn't, you know, the mother at home with the 2 kids and doing the school runs. But that is what I would have happily traded in all these modellings and runways and stuff for. But doing, you know, I walked on for the Breast Cancer Now big fashion show and in front of all sorts of people, celebrities. And
how many would have been there?
I think there was about 300. They did 2 shows, there was about 300 in each.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are people like the Fairfax and FEBE team were there. They work, you know, Breast Cancer Now work a lot with loads of different companies and they had all their kind of corporate people at the show. But, you know, I would never have done that before. I don't think I would have had the confidence. And I think that's the other thing, actually losing my breast, having the reconstruction, having my shoulder scar, you know, I've gained a huge amount more body confidence, even though I've got lumps and bumps in places I didn't want, or, you know, like my shoulder's got a massive scar on it. My wedding dress was strapless, so I could see it because I wanted, it's like my battle, I don't like the word battle for cancer at all, but, you know, it's my war wounds for something that has actually been a really tough journey. And it's showing that, you know, you can get on with living even when the tough things happen. Yeah.
So you mentioned your husband, but who's been your support? Because, you know, I'll just say I stalk you on Instagram now. You've obviously got
20,000 followers as well.
21 and a half. So,
jeez, that's some following.
It's slowly growing. Yeah.
Blimey,
I'm very, yeah, I love doing it. And I love that my followers, you know, I'm always engaging with them and stuff. But I would say, firstly, obviously, my family had, at the beginning, it was really difficult for my family because we just lost my mum. They were there, but they couldn't be there fully. So I really relied a lot on my friends. I've got an amazing friendship circle, you know, and all my friends, even if they're from different parts of my life, they've all met and they all get on. And we do, like, we try every year now to do like a girly holiday. So I think 10 of us going on a little thing in, you know, later this year to a cottage. So it's like, we really love to spend the time together. And they've done so much for me, helping me through this. But also, I find talking about it, so talking about it here or talking about it on my Instagram, it's therapeutic because I can kind of put things, I can talk about things that maybe are going on in my head, or I hear about other people's stories. And this community actually of secondary people that I have found, I run a group called Secondary Sisters that's more of an online page, but we do meetups in London generally. And then I've actually got a little group in Norfolk where I'm from who, again, we meet up monthly, and it's just having those girls around me is incredible because they get it. They really get it. You know, we can be up at 3 a.m. and typing on our WhatsApp group, and there'll be someone else probably up at 3 a.m. too. And so, yeah, it's really important to, I say, find your community and actually, you know, get to know people that are also dealing with what you're dealing with. It's sad because we lose people, you know, and that is hard every time. It's a blow, but, you know, it's that phrase, I would rather have loved and lost than never loved at all. I would rather know these people because of the help they give me than never had them in my life, even though I know I'm probably going to lose them.
One of the things I learned from our conversation, which I always go back to, because as I said, for me, it was a life-changing conversation in terms of just that lesson in positivity and meeting someone who really was embracing life, which is lovely to experience that. But if people had mentioned cancer to me before, I would naturally shirk the conversation. I would want to duck out of it because it's a tough, sad subject. Yeah. But that's not the way to deal with it, is it? It's to talk to people about it. And because
I think you can't really say the wrong thing. Right. I think what I've found in my experience is actually having people disappear and not want to talk to you is harder than someone saying the wrong thing, because at least if they say the wrong thing, I can correct them. We can have that conversation. And actually some people don't want to talk about it. That's fine. That's the way they deal with it. But actually by me talking so openly means my friends feel that they can talk more openly. Yes. And like yourself, if I'd sat around the table and said, well, I've got secondary breast cancer and I don't want to talk about it, that would be the very end of that conversation, because you probably wouldn't have then asked the questions. But because I just was like, do you know what? Ask me anything. It's not gonna harm. Yes, I do get upset with certain things, but I think because I've talked about it so much, and I don't know, actually, I think because of my hairdressing career, we're used to talking to people. The social side of life, I never had a day where I wasn't talking about something, whether it's their issues or whether it's the weather or the holidays. You're always talking about something, and I think having that skill has kind of helped me with my diagnosis, because by talking about it, as I say, I do feel that it's much more. It helps me. It really makes my life better.
Really?
By being open. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but there's no right or wrong way, And I think if you said something to someone and they were like, actually, I don't want to talk about it, then that's fine. But at least by you asking, you've helped open up the conversation, allowing that person that you're not going to kind of sit there and almost be like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
And that's what I found about secondaries. I got to the point when we started Secondary Sisters was because I found that everyone who I spoke to thought secondary just means you're going to die. And they did not want to talk about it. And so we went on, Sky News Live and did a big interview with them.
Wow.
And it just got the world talking. Literally, we had messages from all over the world. And people just saying, I've never heard anyone talk about secondaries in that way. And I think that by opening up the conversation and educating people, it makes people less scared.
I think everyone needs to hear and get a dose of you in terms of your outlook, in terms of your approach on stuff. Is this something that you're going to be doing over the next few? Is this something you're going to be building up in terms of doing more speeches, getting into organisations, whatever, and talking with people? Yeah. Is this something that you really? Because if so, can we get the word out? People have got to bloody well book you. But am I right? This is something that you'd really like to start to really build out with your career.
Yeah. So obviously, the work side of things, because of how my illness is, I've never, I haven't been able to go back to hairdressing, and I haven't really been able to go back to what I class as work, because, it's so up and down and varied how I feel. But doing little things, like I do a lot of charity work, and I do my sort of Instagram pages, and we're now looking at starting our own sort of secondaries podcast, me and another girl called Charlie, which we hope we'll be able to get out at some point this sort of year. But yeah, definitely, I'm so open about talking, and I like to kind of get this message across, because I think, we had this conversation on the phone the other week that, I was in their position. I was maybe not a, multi-millionaire business, or, it was a hairdressing business, just me, but I still had...
And your passion though, you loved it.
I was so passionate about it. It was, and I used the phrase, and I still really stick by it actually since I used it, but my business was my life, right? My business was everything to me, but now my life is my business. And so by talking about it to people and encourage, if someone starts up, you talk a lot about startup businesses and entrepreneurs, and if they start a business and it's really successful, but tomorrow it's taken away, would they cope? How would they change their life if tomorrow their business was no longer there? And it can happen, whether it be through illness, whether it be through, some just problem in the business.
Yeah.
Any day that could be taken away. And if you put everything into it, the only person that's left is you. Yeah. And so how do you cope with being you? And we don't focus on us enough. And I remember when I was hairdressing, a client would ring me up and be like, I really want a cut and colour. Can we do it at 9:00 on a Friday night? And I'm just like, yes, why not?
Why not?
And I never took that time to be like, but actually no, because that's my part, that's my life. That's when I should be going out and doing something. I shouldn't be saying yes to everybody, but I did, because that was me. If I went back now, yes, I would still be as passionate and as willing to do my work, but I would set boundaries. You know, and I'd give myself those days off, and I'd give myself time to be me, because I think we do get so caught up with life, with business, with making money, that we forget the important person.
And I think people, you know, might think like that very short term, like if they're ill or their family's ill, for example, then they think, right, I'm going to make a change, and then like 2 weeks later you get back into it and it all goes back to how it was before.
I think if I hadn't had my shoulder operation, I honestly think, let's say my cancer was only in my spine and my pelvis, and I was just treated kind of on, because some secondaries can just be treated on tablets, you know, but I was going into hospital every couple of weeks to have these intravenous drugs. But if I had been on more of a, I don't like to say, more chilled kind of regime, I would, no word of a lie, I would have been back in that salon the day I could have, you know, walked back in there.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have probably been doing exactly what I was doing before, and not putting myself first. So having my shoulder operation and being told you cannot work as hairdresser anymore, it gave me that chance to go, right, who am I?
I can't. I can't imagine. I can't. Yeah, as you said, just say it out. Like, I can't imagine what it is like, the challenge to you saying those scans every 3 months. I was just it's so, because actually
It's a roller coaster.
When we spoke a couple of weeks back, or last week, you said, you know, you've got the scan coming up and the stress that causes. I'm so happy talking to you right now that the last one was great. But just, yeah, just to be able to have the opportunity to listen to you and how you are approaching this, and the fulfillment and the life you're living is just so awesome, that we just had to get this story out. And I'm so grateful for you coming in and learned loads when I sat next to you. And thanks again to Fairfax and FEBE for introducing us.
Definitely. I've got their boots on.
Yeah, beautiful boots, fantastic boots. But I just can't wait to see you doing keynotes and going into organisations and corporates and really helping everyone get their mindset right, because you are proof that getting your mindset in the right place creates amazing things. It creates power, and
Definitely.
I take my hat off you. You're epic, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.